What's up, people? Welcome back to another installment of our podcast. By any means?
By any means.
A lot better this time, man. We getting there. We getting there, man. 5 episodes. It's feeling good. Listen, we got a good one today, man. Go ahead.
I said, yeah, we're going to get it.
Yeah, we're going to get it. It's all good. It's all good. But listen, we got a good one today, right? Because, I've been speaking to a lot of people, watching a lot of podcasts, listening to some audio books, just talking to some of the interns that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. And it's like they don't really see the value in college, even though they're in college, which is weird to me. So I kind of want to have this conversation about, is college worth it in 2020? Right? Yeah. And I'm excited about this episode because we got some very, very, very special guests with us, right?
There.
And a repeat offender, so to speak, right? Somebody who's been on the show before, she's been a hit, and I'm just excited to have her back. So, and then we got 2 other great guests, but I don't want to spoil the surprise. I kind of want to just bring them in. How you feel about that?
Let's bring them in.
All right, let's bring them in. So I need everybody to welcome back our special guest, but again, she's like family at this point. I think we're probably going to make her a permanent installment. I don't know, but welcome back, Bridget.
Hey guys, how you doing?
How you doing, Bridget?
What's up?
Awesome. And again, I'm digging the head wrap.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
giving me Erykah Badu vibes. I like it.
Yes. On and on and on and on. On and on.
You better call Tyrone.
Yeah, right. So listen. Also, we have our good friend and esteemed colleague, Mr. Yancey. How you doing, brother?
Here we go. Hey, what's going on? What's going on?
James.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try it.
Look, if you were at Hampton when we were there back in 02 to 06, man, I'm telling you, New Face ran things, and this is the man behind it, right? Part of the team,
Absolutely.
Right? So, I appreciate you, brother.
Yes, man. And we appreciate you.
For sure. And last is certainly not least, my good friend, Miss Tiffany Collins, who's an esteemed attorney in Maryland. I'm telling you, this girl is fighting this grown woman is fighting a good fight.
Yes.
And she is literally exemplifying the type of energy that we need to have, especially in 2020 with all that's going on. So look, I'm excited to have you all. Thank you for being a part of the show. And how you guys feeling?
Good.
All right.
Good.
We're good. Ready to go. Ready to get the discussion going.
That's right.
So look, here's the thing, right? As I mentioned, I've been having a lot of conversations, listening to a lot of people, and college doesn't seem to be it in 2020. You know what I mean? There's a lot of young folk who are on the fence about it. A lot of older folk who have some regrets, and admittedly, so myself, I don't know if I regret going to college, but the truth of the matter is this, right? I went to school for accounting. I am now a professional videographer. I'm also trying to start a bank. Right? I don't really to this point, I haven't used my degree in the way that I thought that I was going to when I went to college, yet I'm still paying off student loans.
Right.
So I want to have a conversation because a lot of people who are of the entrepreneurial mindset, they believe that, if you don't know exactly what you're going to school for, then you're really kind of wasting money, right? Typically, entrepreneurs don't really want to fit into the mold. They're always trying to think about how to do something differently. And I don't know, it just gets to the point where they wind up getting a degree in something, spending money on something that they feel is unnecessary because they don't use half the skill sets that they learn while they're in college, right? So that's pretty much it. So I want to have a discussion with people who are just as, if not smarter than I am, about college, and then just kind of get that out into the world so that, you know, at least we can make an informed decision, right? So I don't know. How do you feel about it? You know, Yancy, I know you've done a documentary, so I kind of want to pitch it to you first about This Is Why, right? I want to know, what do you think? I mean, from your perspective, I know you're an entrepreneur as well. So from your perspective, is it important to is it worth it to go to college in 2020?
Yes. All right. Yeah, I guess it would make sense for me to start it off. All right. So, yes, I say 100%. There is a reason to go to college. You should definitely still consider college for a number of different reasons that have nothing to do with the actual degree that you're getting. Now, from my perspective and from the perspective of the people that I've interviewed for the documentary, and when I was writing my books and trying to put together an idea to allow for our youth to be in a better position than we are in now, a lot of it came down to proper preparation and knowing what you're getting into beforehand and preparing for that. So a lot of the issues that you just brought up, money, loans, all those things, if you allow for you to prepare for it, whether it be yourself or your parents, those are the things that you should be not have to worry about when you get to college. So like, grants, scholarships, making a sound decision. Like, for example, I decided to go to Hampton on a partial scholarship. I had a full scholarship to go to Lincoln, so being able to take those things into consideration will help you in your decision where you can still go to college and not have to worry about, loans. But there's so many other things that go into when you're at college and when you're meeting people, you're networking, you're finding yourself, all these things that will be happening that have nothing to do with your accounting degree, but it's what you need to figure out what it is that you want to do in life. And you wouldn't be able to do that if you didn't go to college, if you didn't step out of that comfort zone of your home, of your town, wherever you're from, and you want to be able to have those opportunities that can set you up for what's going on right now. So like, if you didn't go to college, would you have been able to meet Derek and put together a podcast, basically 14 years later? Probably not, but like those are the things that I think about when it comes to college, where it has nothing to do with the actual degree, where you are going there to get your degree. But as I mentioned so many times within the documentary and talking to different people about my book, the degree may not be what it is you're going to be doing in life, but all the other things that happen in college, all those connections, finding yourself, getting all those pieces together, those are the things that make you all to the person that you are today. And yeah, you got the degree, but all those other dominoes, fell in line for you to be the person that you are. And that's why I think that college is important. It's just a matter of making sure that you apply those certain pieces beforehand so that you won't be in, loan debt and having those type of issues. That's where the perspective that I come from when it comes to, college. I'll start.
Yeah, no, that's a very valid point. And, to be honest with you, no, I probably wouldn't be doing a podcast with Derek because I wouldn't know him. so yeah, to your point, college is definitely provides, networking opportunities that, wouldn't have been afforded to somebody like me, especially coming from where I come from. But, I'm curious to know what kind of everybody else has to say about it. So, Tiffy, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about, the networking piece and going to college and everything that Yancy just spoke about?
So interestingly enough, I am an introvert. So the social networking part of college did not exist for me. College existed for me to go to get my degree in order to use it. So I have a postgraduate degree. And of course, I wouldn't have been able to complete law school if I hadn't have completed undergrad. So for me, undergrad was just a step on the journey to ultimately get to having my law degree. But, I think that one of the things that we miss when we talk about college as it exists in 2020 is a lot of kids go to college and they're not prepared for it. when I was younger, from my mom, who was a college, who didn't have a college degree. She was a high school graduate. She worked in, low skill, low wage jobs. Her thing was always, listen, if you go to school, you just need to go to college and get a degree and everything will be fine, right? And so you have that mentality of a lot of kids who come into college that as long as I'm here, I'm doing better than this other 50%. And as long as I get this degree, then I'll be doing better than maybe the 75%. But there are some important functional components to going to college that a lot of people miss out on because in addition to being there, they're not given the guidance that they need to succeed. Like we're talking about fundamental skills like basic accounting, right? Which, you need math skills in order to graduate because you have general education math credits that you have to satisfy. Being able to write a letter, being able to write a report. As an employer, it's kind of scary sometimes when I get resumes and I'm reviewing resumes from people who have college degrees. And I'm like, wow, somewhere along the line, the basic fundamental skills of writing a resume or writing a letter or a paragraph were missed, and so yes, it's important, but I think we need to shift our focus on why it's important. And I guess that kind of ties into what Yancey was saying, right? Which is it's bigger than just getting a piece of paper at the end. There's so much more available to kids as they go through college and enjoy the college experience that we need to do a better job of shifting the focus so that they get a fuller picture and they're thinking beyond I'm here, so I'm doing better, and I'm going to get this degree, so that's going to get me somewhere. Because it's a much fuller, richer experience than that.
Absolutely. Derek, what do you think?
So the question at hand is essentially, is it worth it in 2020 going to college and also obtaining your degree? I think my quick answer is yes. I do still believe that going to college is worth it. Additionally, I do believe and concur with both Yancey and Tiffany. I think college is not just about obtaining your degree within your particular field of study. There's so much more. It's a comprehensive process for those 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 years that you go to college, right? It's
Super
much
senior,
more than that.
Super senior.
Yeah, super seniors. And hey, there's nothing wrong with that either. Because quite frankly, I know most of us graduated on this show within the 4-year time frame from an undergrad perspective. But when I graduated, like Kelvin, you already alluded to Yancey's New Face Entertainment, and I was a part of that since 2002, as my big brother brought me on. But I missed that experience and having both the college and working, work study and real jobs in school, and then also networking and throwing parties at school. So Yancey continued as he had already graduated and going to grad school and teaching and doing different things back in the 757 where Hampton University is. And I was up here in Northern Virginia, the DC, Washington Capital Region, trying to get my corporate America on. And I was like, man, these guys are still going at it. Like I gotta get back. But no, I was like, I wish I was a super senior or at least join the 5-year MBA program so I could continue. But no, short answer, yes, it's still worth it. It's a much more enriching, comprehensive process for those 2, 4+ years from an undergraduate perspective. I will turn it a little bit, and I know we'll get to this later, but I do believe that there are other routes in which one could not only learn their skill sets to a specific career field, but also network and learn things greater than just a specific degree. For instance, the trades for trade school or the military straight out of high school. I think there are other routes that one could grasp some of these other lessons outside of the classroom, back to Yancey's point, within the This Is Why documentary and book. But I think I might be biased. I think college just has a little bit of a greater experience, but that's also dependent or contingent upon the person. Like Tiffany just alluded to, she may not have been as much of an extrovert, so maybe the social life wasn't that great per se. I don't know. However, even an introvert in college can still get involved in other organizations. And Yancey, we talked about that in your book and documentary as well. So it may not be about going to the parties or throwing parties and having an entrepreneurship aspect at school, but it may be, okay, well, I want to be the president of the SGA. Or I want to be a part of the student leadership program that I know, Yancey and Bridget and I were a part of at Hampton. So there are other ways to do those things.
Awesome. And, speaking of military, Bridget, I know you were in the military, but I know we'll speak about that later. But I do want to get your insight on whether you think just generally, is college worth it in 2020?
So I think this is a great question. I think it's a great question for right now where we're at with the pandemic and everything. But my short answer is no. College is not worth it. But I say that based off of like how college is structured today. So the way that college is structured right now, placing the worth, meaning the money that you're spending, are you getting the return on your investment? My short answer would be no. I think that oftentimes, right, we're asking students to pick a major, to pick and pay for a career that more than likely most of them aren't even going to do. Most of them aren't even going to stay in that particular field. They're going to pick different things. They're going to change different things. And so we're asking a 17-year-old, a 16, an 18-year-old to make really, really firm life decisions, and pay a premium for that, right, at a very, very young age. Take out a loan and then have to pay that back for potentially the remainder of their life. What I do think, though, is that if the model was shifted, if there were things you guys talked about, like skills, right, learning skills and life skills, being actually prepared for a job, if those things were happening, or if you talked about, the value in the student life part of it. And I think people talk about that, but I don't know per se if you want to go in and spend $30,000 a year just to meet new friends. I think it depends on where you put value and where you put worth. I have learned really in the past, few days that a lot of students are even this year thinking about taking a gap year this year with the pandemic and everything that's happening. And they're saying, well, yes, college is still worth it, but in 2020 right now, with everything going on, with all being so unsure of what's happening, I don't know if it's worth it right now and if it's worth it in the current model as it stands. And so I think from an adaptability perspective, I think that colleges have some work to do in order to make the experience more worth it for students today. Maybe for us, or maybe 10, 20 years ago, maybe, but I think now there needs to definitely be a shift. So my short answer would be no, but there's a lot of caveats with that. I had an excellent experience at Hampton University. It was my first time seeing affluent Blacks in one place. I was like, oh, they drive this, oh, they went there, oh, they do that. I had no idea that we were such a robust people. So that was amazing. And it really was invaluable, right? I was also in ROTC, Army ROTC. They paid for school 100% paid for, and I got money for room and board as well, right? So all I had to pay back was time. I didn't have to pay back money. So my experience, I think, was a bit different than some, but I think thinking about it just from a cost to benefit perspective, like just the cost, we're paying for a degree that puts us in a position to be able to be successful and make money. And I don't know if all those dots are always connecting.
That right there. You see that? You see what I'm talking about? And I said that earlier. The issue comes down to money at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to money. And that's why, like I said before, like even with Bridget being at ROTC, you were 100% paid for. So you just have to pay back time, and then also with the example with Tiffany, she had a plan. The bachelor's degree is really what I needed to go ahead and go to get the law school. So
right.
There are particular careers where you have to get the bachelor's in order to move forward. And the two that stand out the most would be a law degree or to be a doc, you know, to be some sort of medical field or a doctor, you know. But between the two, you have to prepare, you know. And RTC was something that you started RTC before you came to Hampton, correct, Bridget? I know
I did it in high school.
Right. So you did it in high school, and then Tiffany, you already had a plan to prepare, and you already knew beforehand what it is that you wanted to do, you know. So like that's what's important, is the preparation ahead of time. And that's what I said before, that it has to be some sort of preparation way before you get to be 17 years old and you're a senior in high school and you're like, oh, my mother told me to go to college, I'm going to go to college. No, it has to be something that needs to be done ahead of time. And that's why I ended up having to write almost a prequel to my book to prepare students from middle school to high school for college. And a lot of that comes to, like, when you're in high school, knowing that this is going to be your plan. And I understand at a younger age, a lot of students don't think that way, but that's at some point, with knowing that our youth think the way, like, if you're 13 years old right now, a lot of 13-year-olds think the way we thought at 17, 18. So you got to start talking to them as if they're 17, 18. Like, listen, guy, like, this is what you have to do if you think that you want to go to college and it's going to be that easy. So now, when you're in high school, you should be taking those honors classes. You should be taking the honors classes, which is going to lead to the accelerated classes. So by the time that you get to your senior year, you're basically taking college classes, because they do offer that in a lot of schools, where you're taking college courses your senior year, so that a lot of your college credits will be taken care of. Like me, for myself, I graduated from high school in 2001. I didn't take any English classes in college because I took it in high school, you know. And had I known about that earlier, I would have taken more classes so that certain things wouldn't have been taken care of before I even got there, you know. And then, you know, dealing with the COVID situation is very serious, because like I did a number of Zoom classes, because I was actually booked to do speaking events for commencements, and they turned into Zoom classes prior to commencement. So I was talking to middle school graduates and high school graduates. And at first, I wasn't a big fan of trade schools. I wasn't a big fan of community college. When I started to think about the situation it is right now, that could be an option. You know,
it is. Yes,
it's definitely an option, especially in the current climate. I would just say that maybe think of it as an option to kind of step out of your comfort zone. Like, I don't want a student to think, okay, let me take a leap year and use that whole year to just be up under your family, be up under your parents. Like, use that year productively. You know, use that year to do something where you can save some money, but at the same time, you're moving forward in your life. You know, so whether it be trade school, whether it be community college, whether it be RTC, whatever it is that you're trying to do something where you're out of your comfort zone, you know, but you're still moving forward in your life, and you're also making connections, and you're doing things so that you could be at a better point than what you were the year before. You know, so that's just, you know, my take on it. And I you know, and everyone has a different perspective, and I think that, you know, with Tiffany, you know, you had a goal in mind already, you know, so you needed the bachelor's to get to law school. You know, Bridget, you was in RTC already, so you know school was paid for. But you know, I know your journey is like, I know your journey, so it's like, it wasn't easy. So people don't get this thing, I was going to go to RTC and have school paid for it. It wasn't an easy journey, you know, and like, obviously my journey wasn't easy either. So either, but you know, I think college was definitely needed, because if I was to stay home, I don't know what I would be right now. So
one of the things that I think that I'm hearing, like when words come up as people are talking, and it's this idea of strategy, that at a young age, right, we should be teaching strategy. How do you strategize and put things into place to really work your plan? That you may have to pivot, you may have to be adaptable, things might change, but what is your strategy? And if you're taking a gap year, right, what does your strategy look like during that time you're taking off? One of the things, this is very random, but one of the things that kind of came up for me is this idea of like boating. You know, could you get a boating license? Could you get some, like you said, like some type of trade, like do something to be able to advance something in your life? But I think that there's the idea of strategy is super important when it comes to college and entering into that space.
You know, you guys make some very valid points, right? And in an ideal situation, you're 1,000% right. You know, I got lucky, right? Don't get me wrong. I'm from the hood, right? We grew up with pretty much nothing, though as children, we never knew it because our parents sacrificed so much for their children, right? So I didn't know I was poor until I, got into a situation where I was around rich people, namely Hampton University, to be honest with you. But yeah, so I didn't know that. And I got lucky because my mother stressed a long time ago. I remember being 12 years old, and she made me start volunteering. And as a part of the volunteer program, they offered to go to pay for us partially to go for this golf camp. I'm like, golf? What the heck is golf? Like, you mean that sport where they hit the little ball around on TV? It's so boring. I just want to play football and go outside and play with my friends. You know what I mean? But she was like, boy, go. You're going. You don't have a choice. I'm paying for it. You're going. And you need to just try something new. You never know. You might like it. I went. I actually liked it. You know what I'm saying? I won the long ball competition. Well, second runner up. I messed up on the putt, the tiebreaker. Anyways, point is, I went and I experienced something different, and I liked it. And ever since then, I was never afraid to try something new. And she didn't go to college until after I graduated, but she did go and finish, which is great, right? I had nobody to tell me what to expect in college. Those honor classes that Yancey spoke about, where you got the college credits, yeah, they were available to the white kids, and from my perspective, right? I say all that to say that my point is the extent of my preparation for college and the rest of my life has been, don't be afraid to try something new, right? And that's the best that my parents could do at that particular point in time, and it was extremely important. And yes, to Bridget's point, I had a lot of fun when I went to Hampton. I'm just not exactly sure that the expense was worth it because I didn't have anybody to actually do their job, like my guidance counselors or my teachers, to say, well, Kelvin, what are you really passionate about? What else what else can we expose you to figure out what you might like to do for the rest of your life? You know what I'm saying? There was no real exposure to it beyond my parents saying, don't be afraid to try something new. So I wasn't afraid. Had somebody expose me to different things, had somebody told me that being, for example, the people in theater class were not weirdos, right? They were actually doing something pretty fun. And maybe I would have started acting when I was in high school instead of when I was, in 2012 after a tragic year. You know what I'm saying? I got divorced. My dad passed away. I started doing it a lot later and discovered this whole creative part of my life. And now 8 years later, I have my own production company. I'm partners in another one. I'm doing stuff for major networks. You know what I'm saying? Like I wrote a book, write poetry, all this type of stuff, podcast. Like I never knew that it was even remotely possible. And I know that I'm not afraid to try new things. So I'm willing to bet that I could go into, maybe had I not gone to Hampton, I would have networked my way into some sort of situation and figured something out, because I'll talk to anybody about anything. You know what I mean? So I felt like I don't know where I would be. Would I be doing this? I'm not 100% sure, but I'd be doing something with my life for sure. I just don't know if it was worth the expense, because Hampton was hard. Had I not been sitting on my guidance counselor's office in the Hampton University tape that randomly had been on the table, I don't know if I would have even known Hampton existed. It was simply a tape that somebody said I couldn't do it, so I decided to go. But I went through hell. You know what I'm saying? I was working 35 hours a week from the summer before my junior year till I graduated, took 21 credits my final semester just so I can graduate on time and prove myself right that I can graduate. So, it's one of those things where I personally, I understand that there were some invaluable experiences at Hampton that, were just amazing. And it felt great to be in that environment. Like Bridget, Black people, I've never seen that many Black people actually focused on doing schoolwork and doing well. You know what I'm saying? So it showed me us in a new light. And that's invaluable. However, the degree portion and the expense, I don't know if it justified the expense, just knowing the type of person that I am and the lengths to which I'm willing to go in order to prove myself right. Forget proving other people wrong, but proving myself right. So that's the part that I struggle with. And when I get asked that question, it throws me for a loop sometimes because I get it, but then here's what I'm curious about, Tiffany, and this one is for you. Since you deal with people, you're an attorney, you deal with people with degrees, without degrees, that kind of thing. I guess in your experience, what do you see any correlation between, how successful or non-successful, or the path that someone is taking based on their education?
And so I do a good amount of work helping small business owners or new business owners set up their businesses. And then sometimes I even go back into businesses that have already been formed to help them restructure or to ensure that their legal structure is sound, right? And so what I will say is this, is that people who are determined to make it will be determined to make it whether they have a degree or they don't have a degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I do agree with Bridget about is that I think that when you get to college, kids have too many choices. You do not need a bachelor's degree in history. There are very few professions that require
100%.
a very specialized curriculum prior to your admittance into that field. The
100%.
sciences, sometimes mathematics, but for the most part, any degree that you have, you can take that degree and you can go anywhere. The problem is that when these kids who don't know what they want to do get to these colleges, right? They are taking these majors because it sounds good. I am a huge proponent of a general education
Right.
degree. I am a
100%.
huge proponent on knowing how to read and write and understand and communicate in basic English, in the basic English language. I think that foreign languages are important. I think that they add diversity to understanding different cultures. But when you get into all of the other different degrees or areas of study, that's what they call them now. When you get into all those other areas of study, you have these kids who are trying to find their way. And if we don't do a better job of, one, teaching our kids which professions are going to be financially beneficial before they invest, $40,000 a year in loans to go to school and get a degree in social work when they could have gotten that from a local in-state school and spent a whole lot less money
100%.
in a profession that they're never going to make enough money in to survive and pay the loan back. And so, is there a difference in terms of, do I think that people with degrees are more successful or less successful? No, I think it depends on the person. I have had many conversations with people who have gone to school and gotten degrees, and they are doing something completely different and opposite than what it is that they got their degree in. And to some degree, they probably feel like they're not using their degree, right? But if we restructure our view of it and the approach that we take to it, everybody, I think, can benefit from college level courses that focus on life skills that are transferable in any profession that you go into.
Yeah.
Awesome. That makes it.
Well
That
said.
makes sense. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well said.
Very well said.
I'm really glad. Yeah, I'm really glad that Kelvin, we did agree to have this topic. And we had to work to make it as sweet and appealing of a title as possible. But I'm glad that we chose to and elected to have this topic, because I think it's important and vital for our future, not just our future for us as young adults, but for the legacies that we have. We have, whether we have children or nieces or nephews and the people that are coming behind us. We stand on the shoulders of giants. And I say that and I got chills because some of this conversation pertains to legacy. And I know that I'm the legacy of people that did not have as many opportunities. They didn't exactly have the same privileges as all Americans. And somehow the majority and a lot of America, even other minorities, forget that. They forget the experiences, the trauma that the African American, the Black people in America have experienced, and also those that have come into America through immigration from Africa and other Black native lands as well. The experience in America alone really weighs heavy on our community, our specific demographic, in terms of what we're talking about. Is college worth it? I go back to my point, and I got a couple points to hit, and I want us to confer and to speak on those as well. But I think it's important to talk about legacy, because some of you have already spoken to it, where we're talking about preparation and strategy, right? How can you strategically plan to prepare yourself accordingly and appropriately to get to college? Shout out to Yancey's book for the preparation piece of it, not just the This Is Why piece, but not only how do you at an early enough age and time effectively strategize to prepare yourself to get there. plug. How do you effectively strategize to get there? And then how do you effectively strategize to actually sustain and maintain and obtain to your degree? And we've already spoken to this. It's a more comprehensive process than just your degree. So I really appreciate Tiffany for bringing up that point about working with your parents or within yourself to understand, if I am going to go to college, what's the best route for me? What are the more effective and financially valuable routes to take? And why legacy is important is because, quite frankly, a lot of us have already spoken to, we've come from situations where our parents may not have went to college. So we are living examples of not only free will and making the choices in your life to bring you to a certain place in your future, but we're also talking about that, what I call natural selection. Tiffany spoke to this. There's some people that just have that in them, that they are going to make it no matter what, whether it's college, trade, real estate, military, or otherwise. They are just going to make it. Now, there's different degrees and levels to that. Like there's levels to everything, but there's some people that just have that natural selection within them that they're going to make it. And then there's the decision making to get you somewhere. And some people have, and it can go either way. You got people that have legacy, so their families are families that are college graduates, so they prepare their kids. Then you got college graduate parents that don't prepare their kids. And on the flip side, you got people like myself. My mother was also a high school graduate, went into the military. Thank you to your service, Mom, but and you too, Bridget. But quite frankly, my mom never applied pressure to me to go to college. She never forced any decision on me. I saw a different world growing up. I said, I want to do this. I saw all these Black television shows during our time in the 80s and 90s that they plugged colleges, whether they were predominantly white institutions, PWIs, or historically Black colleges and universities. And I knew that I was not only gifted athletically, but I was gifted academically. So I had both to work on. And from that, I may not have had a father in my life, but something God, my father, and other mentors were in my life to say, hey, this is the track that you can go on. And then it was within me that said, hey, look, you can capitalize on your athleticism and you can capitalize on your on academia. So focus on both, find a balance. And that's why I try to teach my kids too, but find your balance, because it can be you that prepares you. It's not just about the knowledge sharing. And back to knowledge sharing, I think I really commend Yancey on his books, because that's a form of knowledge sharing. And you didn't only put it inside of a book, because a lot of people don't read or read effectively, or can't comprehend that well, right? You didn't just put it in a book, you also made a documentary. And it just so happens that it correlates around or is involving entertainment as well. So there's the entertainment aspect, but then there's also the aspect about academia and college. So you're knowledge sharing and providing that information to the masses. And that's what I love about our millennial generation, our Generation X, because I'll say it, especially in the Black community, a lot of our parents and older elders, they didn't share everything. So knowledge sharing was almost non-existent. So we were going into a lot of cases and scenarios blind. But now what are we doing? We're actually navigating through the world, gaining our experience, and some of the experience is not great for us, unfortunately. But you know, without struggle, there's no progress. And I think that makes us better. And what we're doing is we're actually sharing that to the masses as well. So that covers legacy, that covers knowledge sharing, and preparation. In preparation, you got to take the initiative sometimes. And Kelvin, I heard you mention that too. I mean, you know, your story hits home with me and it resonates with me. But I'll tell you something about me. When I saw those college-centric television shows specific to the Black community and otherwise, it really resonated with me, and I knew I had gifts academically. So I made sure I was competitive in school, no matter what. I may have joked around, I may have talked, I may have played sports, but I got it done in the classroom. And those teachers tried to get me in trouble. That's another subject for other reasons outside of academics, because I still was competitive with the white people or others. Mm-hmm. So that didn't matter. But I had that self-starting or stick-to-itiveness where I would show initiative. So when I was in high school at a predominantly white high school in rural Virginia in America, where there's less than 10% of us there, I stood out. Why? Because I was I was excelling academically, and nobody could touch me. Even though they may have affected my grades for negative reasons tied to race as opposed to others, I still showed the initiative. I went into the guidance office, to your point, Kelvin. I went there religiously, and starting my sophomore year, 14, 15 years old, I was in the guidance counselor's office multiple times per week, preparing myself for college for the next 3 years. I got into co-op programs during the summer when I had football training camp too, right? So I had jobs. I had jobs at fast food. I had co-op programs with the HR department at the school board. And I worked within, the school and stuff like that, and prepared within the guidance counselor's office. So the real reason why I bring up initiative is because we don't have to always rely on others, but I appreciate the fact that our generation is passing down and sharing that knowledge. But it's also, how can you self-start? There, especially today with the internet and the information age, there's stuff out there. So there's really no excuse. You can self-start and initiate for yourself. And now we got books and documentaries out there. There's really no excuse. The last thing I'll say, and I'm sorry to take up this time, but it really hit my spirit, that while you're in college, there's internships, there are jobs, there are trades and certificates. Like during my senior year, I got my real estate license while I was taking my last finals. So there are things that you can do. And I wish I did that my freshman year, because I could have been selling properties down in Hampton Roads, Virginia, making money. So there are things that we can do concurrently or in parallel to while we're in college.
Yeah, for sure. I think thinking about, like, to your point, like things that are happening the intracurricular programs and the co-curricular programs that are happening, during the school day, after school. A lot of those things are really, I think, things that make it worth it too. So to your point, if you are in student government, right, or if you are in some type of club or auxiliary organization in your school, oftentimes that allows you to connect with other entities and other organizations even outside of the school. And I think that connection piece of it is huge. Again, I feel like, at least at Hampton, right, we talk about it being an education for life. And I think the things that I learned at Hampton that I took away most was really life education. And so really how to interact with different people. Again, how beautiful Black people were and how different we were, that we all had these different experiences. But really how to network, how to wear a suit. Like similar to Kelvin's story, it's not that I didn't necessarily grow up in the hood, but I did grow up, you know, not with a lot of money, not with a lot of access, in a single parent home. A lot of different things happening. So when I got to Hampton and on my packing list, it said you need to have a suit. I was like, what? A suit? I was like, you don't need to have a suit. So we got down there and, you know, one of our first events was an event where you had to wear a suit. You had to wear a certain type of attire. So now me and my mom are in Marshalls down on Mercury Boulevard, scrambling, looking for a suit. And so those, interestingly enough, I don't necessarily remember what I learned in my marketing class, but I remember looking for that suit for my first kind of professional experience at Hampton University. And so I think that, again, being worth it, we have to say that project-based learning, internships, experiential learning is really a shift in where we need to go in order to make things worth it. I agree. Tiffany said it so beautifully, and I don't want to restate it because it would say it perfectly, but thinking about a four-year degree, at least undergrad, let's talk about undergrad, 4-year undergrad degree, normal degree, and we're making them specialized. There's no reason for it to be specialized, not one, unless you're going into a medical field, unless there's some type of specialty that you already know you want to do 100%, there's no reason for it to be specialized. And it could be just, and that's why I said it's worth it if the model shifts for actually what the needs are for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I think listen, you guys are so eloquent. I love it. Funny story about that suit. I got in trouble because one of the first meetings we had was in Ogden Hall, and I didn't have my suit. And you know, I forget his name. Yeah, so it was like the dean of students. I can't remember what his name was at the time. I mean, right now, but
Dean McMorris.
Had like 30 of us outside of Ogden Hall, like, why you don't got your suit? Why you don't got your suit? Why you don't got your suit? I said, look, we can't afford it. But then my mom went and found me like this big double-breasted suit with these 1-inch pinstripes.
Clean. He was clean, bro. He was clean. He was ready.
Man, I swear, I had to wear that thing so many times freshman year. I couldn't wait to get another suit, man. And with these fake ostrich skin shoes, man, it was so funny. But
you talking about Stacey Adams? You had some Stacey Adams?
Some Stacey Adams, yeah, exactly. But look, that's a side note. I'm sorry, I just had to say that. So let me ask you guys a question. What do you say? Because preparation is key, right? It's important. I get the the need for a general studies degree, right? But what do you say? And I get that natural selection is a real thing, you know. So I 100% get it. Not everybody has it. But what do you say to the person that has to take care of their niece because their mom's a drug addict? You know what I'm saying? Or I mean, their little sister because their mom's a drug addict, or the person that says that, you know, shucks, my dad's locked up, my mom is trying her best, but we still ain't got food on the table, so I still got to go out here and do what I got to do, whether it's, you know, sell drugs or because McDonald's is only paying $7.50 an hour, you know what I'm saying, $7.25 an hour, whatever the case may be. Like, what do you say to that person that's preoccupied with having to put food on the table or pay rent, you know, or, you know, trying to sell food stamps so they can have money to get the you know, essentials that they need that they can't necessarily purchase on food stamps, which I'm not going to get into that. But but the point is, like, what do you say to that person that's preoccupied? Like, at what point do we say, yeah, natural selection is a real thing, but we got to be able to reach out and touch some people who may not have been exposed to something greater than what they see on a day-to-day basis, right? Which could be a number of things. So what do we say to those people?
Whew, that is a loaded question. You're walking right down the pathway to the criminalization of poverty. We need to do a whole other
I know
section
that's like
episode on that, because I could go on about that for days. But what I will say is this. I do a lot of social justice litigation. And for a period of time, I did a lot of lead paint litigation in Baltimore City. Baltimore, Philadelphia, Boston, some of the oldest cities in America are cities that also have ports. And in the area of the ports, the houses that surround the ports are usually the oldest houses in that particular area. And so houses that were built before 1970 in most states were built using lead paint, right? Lead paint is fine when it's intact, but when it cracks or chips or turns into dust and it's ingested, it becomes a very toxic poison. And one of the patterns of injury that you see in children who ingest lead paint are cognitive deficits in the brain. It's brain damage, right? If you eat lead paint and the lead gets into your body, your body can't tell the difference from between lead and calcium. So your body's going to process the lead just like it would process calcium through your body. And when it gets into your brain and it touches the white matter or the gray matter in your brain, it is going to cause permanent brain damage. Permanent, right? So you're talking about kids that from the age that they start walking, which is usually like somewhere around 9 months, up until about the age of 5 or 6, when they're no longer putting their fingers and foreign objects in their mouths. You're talking about kids in that age range who are suffering significant brain damage as a result of ingesting this heavy metal, right? And so one of the lawyers that I used to work for when I first got into lead paint litigation was explaining to me basically the degradation of our public school systems in Baltimore City. And that's the only thing I can speak to, because that's where I live and that's where I grew up. Right, which is the idea that you're taking children who are inherently born in troubled environments, right? And you're taking them and you're putting them into schools that are part of a troubled school system. And then you want those kids to, at age 18, be able to come out of school and be super successful and go on to college and get degrees and get these great careers. You are setting them up for failure every single day of their life, because that is impossible, right?
Yep.
And so it's not just about providing an opportunity. Like, forget opportunity. We got to work on providing basic needs for some of these people. And that comes in the form of an absolute quality education. Now, I have a whole different point that goes down the idea of the integration of the school system, but we'll save that for a different episode, but for those people who are going through all those issues, which are real, that's real life, they are set up to fail, because the system that we live in, the justice system that we live in, the educational system that we live in, they're going to provide them as many obstacles as possible to weed out whatever weak links, and I put that in quote, that you can, to make it that much more difficult for them to survive. So I think that it goes beyond opportunity. Like, the reach back for that is policy change. The reach back for that 100%. Is, who the heck are we putting in office? Who's making these decisions? Why is our superintendent getting a $60,000 pay raise when kids are sitting in schools that don't have any air conditionings, that in Baltimore City are running on top of a boiler system, right? And then we wonder why they can't sit still during the spring or the last few months of school, and they're always getting into fights. The problem is so incredibly complex that it's not just about what can we tell them. What we should be asking is, what do we do to change it? That's what it's about.
I know if Yancey was coming on to say something, but I know for me, right? So I worked for Pittsburgh Public Schools for 3 years prior to the organization that I work for now. I'm currently getting my doctorate in leadership and education administration. So these are topics from that standpoint that are very, very near and dear to my heart. One of the projects that I worked on at Pittsburgh Public School was a school closing, where a school was closed and those kids, those high school kids, were then absorbed into another school. But statistically speaking, when schools close, right, and they're closing all over the place, they're typically closed in low economic majority Black and brown communities. And then typically those kids aren't going to schools that are better, where the data shows that they'll do better. They're sent to schools that are typically not doing, are doing the same or potentially worse, to be able to consolidate them. So I worked on a project where I worked on the experience for the kids to make sure that their transition was smooth, right? So that was good work. But what was interesting about that is still over time, and then working with the kids at the school, 98% African American, probably about the same free and reduced lunch, about 20 something, 25, 26, 27% IEPs, learning disabilities. So you're looking at all of these deficits. And then when you're sitting there and you're talking to kids, bringing it back, right, and asking them, so are you thinking about going to school? The answer is like, no. Like it's either a no or like I got stuff to do. I got stuff to do on the block. Like, I'm not. And when they say it, they 100% mean it. Like, it's not. There's no additional parts of this conversation. You're trying to figure out how to then, from such a deficit, to be able to energize, students who it's not that they're far behind, right? They've been put so far behind, right? And now they're just living out the reality of what's already happened to them. And so that is, I think, policy, money, we move in dollars. At this point, I tell people all the time, this is where I'm at right now, 100%. I do not care anymore about civil and social equality. I can sit next to you on the bus and I'm happy about that. Thank you. What I care about is where them dollars at. Where are you putting your money? Where does the money go? Where the dollars at? Where they at? Where the dollars at? Where are the plan? Where's the planning at? Where are the plans at? Because you see these robust plans and people shifting, white schools, but it's not happening at Black schools. Where the plans at? Where the policy makers? Where's everybody at? Because I don't want to hear you talking anymore. I'm not interested in your talking. And I think over time, right, we would see some shifts and folks seeing the value in college. Now, one other quick point just about trades, right? There is definitely some trades are becoming a extinct commodity. People who can do things well. Try to find a plumber right now. I'm renovating a house right now. Try to find a plumber right now. It's difficult. It's very difficult. But I think the mentality and the way that we enter into that, right? The strategy, the way that we enter into that has to look a little bit different, right? These could be business owners. These could be like, how are we doing that? It's not just somebody who's not smart, who's a plumber. No, that's actually a super smart person. And what does that look like? So anyway, I said a lot, but Tiffany, I'm super passionate about those types of things. So.
Yes, and did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple things based off the original question that everybody's been answering. A lot of it might be a piggyback as well. But I come from a perspective of ownership and learning, so when it comes to, those individuals who have so much on their plate, and it's really unfortunate that somebody will have that much on their plate at that age, but it's a reality, and it's something that a lot of us have to deal with as a family, and a lot of us have to deal with, at that age. So I would just say that, if somebody's listening to this and somebody's in that position and someone feels like, college is not even an option right now because I got to go get that bread, like Bridget said, like I got to go get this money. I would try to figure out ways to make something your own, so whether it be plumbing, whether it be that taking that trade and learning that trade, make it your own so that you can have ownership of it, so if you're installing AC units, if you're like I said, the whole plumbing situation, if you're fixing computers, if you're fixing broken iPhones, like figure out a way to make it your own, build your company build your brand up, and keep it going from there, because college may not be for everybody, even though I want it to be for everybody, because I know that the other side, the Caucasian side of society, the people that are the higher up, college is not an option. Like, you're going to college and you're going to do what you have to do to get that degree, because that's what they're teaching their kids, but we aren't in the same position. So I want to make sure that at least we get to the point of ownership. Like, you need to own your own, whether it be like Derek said, he wishes that he would have got his real estate license at an earlier age. So like, even real estate, like flipping, easy to invest in stocks, like all those things,
Right.
like different ways that you can make money and learn certain tools. Just take the time out on a daily basis to learn these things, so that when you're getting that quick money that we all know about and that we're talking about right now, make sure you're flipping it into a way that that it makes sense and it's productive in a more positive way. So that's what I just wanted to say about this particular topic. Just turn it into something positive. You got to take care of responsibilities. At the end of the day, you gotta care for your child. You gotta care for your niece. You gotta care for your elderly mother. You gotta care for your sister, your brother. You got to do it. So everyone's going to be in a different position. So I just want to put it in perspective of ownership, and not thinking that you have to work for somebody else for the rest of your life because of what it is that you were dealt at 17 years old. That's my take on it.
I just want to piggyback on that for just a second. I was having a conversation recently with a client, and I think that what Yancey just said is very important, but it's also very loaded. And it's very loaded for this generation of kids. I don't know what you call them, but the generation of kids that comes behind us, right? Everybody is selling education. If you log on to Instagram, everybody is selling a $99 course that's going to teach you the stock market, that's going to teach you real estate, that's going to teach you all. Like, there are a million shortcuts, right, that everybody has out there that they're teaching and they're encouraging people and they're pushing people to do. Ownership is very important, but it has to be structured. I can't tell you how many businesses in a year I have to restructure, or how many businesses where if somebody passes away, there's no operating agreement, there's no succession plan, there's no, like, our people, the problem has never been the creative part. We got the creative part down cold. Our problem is the planning and the structure, right? Because our businesses don't pass. Our wealth doesn't pass. Our property doesn't pass the way it's supposed to. So I do think ownership is important, but I think that we have a social responsibility, that when we say that, we put it in perspective. When we say you need to learn a trade, like, you need to go to a credible institution and learn a trade. You cannot learn how to trade stocks off of somebody's $99 class that's going to be a 1-hour webinar, and it's going to tell you how, you can day trade and make a ton of money. Or, somebody's $1,500 series about how to, flip a house. Real estate has been one of the biggest money losers for people between the ages of 25 and 40 over the last 15 years. A lot of it had to do with the market crashing. Some of it wasn't entirely, the investor's fault, but a lot of people jump into this idea of ownership because they think that I don't want to work for anybody. So I want to do it on my own. I can do it on my own. And they're using the wrong resources. So ownership, yes, is important, but we also have to make sure that people are filtering where they're getting their information from.
Go ahead, Derek.
Okay, yeah. God, I just want to say again, I just love this topic and how it has evolved across multiple topics within it, in terms of life in general, and where you were to where you are and to where you can be. But I want to touch on something in terms of this question. How do you reach and impact those people that may be in these more difficult scenarios or situations? And I think it's funny because, there's so many different factors that a person could be experiencing. I'm pretty sure that Tiffany, Yancey, Bridget, Kelvin, Derek, we all have experienced one or more of those factors that can hinder us from actually going on the trajectory that we can get to when we were in our youth and even today. But that being said, before I get to that, to get to Tiffany's point, this could go down a whole different rabbit hole and conversation in terms of those impacts that society, policy, procedures, laws, regulations of the government at all levels, state, local, federal levels, have placed upon its people, the people, who's supposed to be all people, but definitely more of some people than other people of its people. Like, for instance, there's Reconstruction. There's industrialism. There's the Great Depression. There's Jim Crow. There's integration. There's civil rights. There's the war on drugs. There's private prisons. There's the education to prison pipeline. My wife is a teacher, so she understands that in DC today. There's so much more. And Kelvin, this goes back to our conversation and why we are by any means. Like we want, and Bridget, you just spoke to it. Thank you. Economic empowerment. Mm-hmm. Everything boils back down to the dollar. Everything boils back down to the dollar. And it's really sad because we're in a capitalistic society, free enterprise. So that to hit on both Tiffany and Yancey's point, I do think ownership is important, but I think how you get to ownership is also important. And quite frankly, that's why I also appreciate our generation, which is different from the prior generations. We have had a little bit of a different experience in America. And the BS is hitting the fan right now, because a lot of us have experienced some things unwarrantedly in our own fields. And yes, it's made us stronger, but it's complete BS that we've had to experience it. And I think not only the knowledge sharing and passing down to our legacies, right? It's that ownership that you speak to, Yancey, and Tiffany, the way you speak to it. I think we are at a point in our careers, in our lives, with all this shared experiences that we have, that we can own. So we can put ourselves on. Yancey, what's that guy's name? Leon, whatnot. He has that hashtag or slogan, put yourself on. Mm-hmm. I firmly believe in that. And I've come to the realization now, and this is from a public sector experience. I've both worked on the private side of public sector and then also in the public sector. I won't speak to the government side because I got NDAs and such, but from a private sector perspective, comprehensively thinking about my experiences, I do not have to be validated by them. I do not. I have cleaned up so much wrongdoing from white people, from other minorities in the public sector because of their own wrongdoing and their ignorance. And I'm tired of it. They don't validate me. God validates me and my people validate me and I validate myself. I'm so sick of the majority and how they think they know what they're talking about. And they create these policies that we were talking about or laws and regulations, but they're ignorant. And that was our last topic too. Are you ignorant? Are you wise? Or are you both? I'm passionate about this. And I think our generation is in a place that we can take ownership, we can share knowledge, and we can move forward. I'll quickly state a couple things about skills and trade and nepotism and experience and ownership. I think there's a big difference between ourselves. I'm going to finish this one thing, Kelvin. I'm sorry. But if you look at the majority, like Yancey said, they're going to send their kids to college, but they're also going to have a job waiting for them. We don't have that. And that's why we need to own our own, because they get pushed
in a house.
Yeah, they get pushed houses, they get pushed cars, they get pushed job opportunities. They go to college and don't have to pay for it. No, yes, there's a disenfranchised white people or majority, but for the most part, who we're talking about are people that are not in that situation. So they get handed things. We have had to build all of that. So that nepotism is real. I'm going to end right there. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, you make some very solid points. You know me there. I think what was the last podcast or the time before that I said, black people act like nepotism is a 4-letter word. You know what I mean? So we gotta kind of look out for one another. But listen, this has been a great conversation. I'm sad that it has to end, but I'm trying to go night at some point. So I do want to go around and get some final thoughts from everybody and then wrap it up. Again, I appreciate you guys, but let's go. Ladies first, Bridget.
I feel like I said a lot already, and I feel like I pretty much got out what I needed to say. I think just going back, if I had to go back to the question, is college worth it? My answer is still no in the current structure that it is today. I think that it needs to be uprooted. It needs to be shifted around. We need to think about the way the how, the why, the what, the where, the when, like all the W's when it comes to college. And I think that it could be a very rich experience, or could be a rich experience for students. But I think that we need to rethink really the structure and the policy and the way that we're doing school in order to make it the most bang for the buck.
Awesome. Tiffany?
I think that I still stand by my opinion that I think that college is definitely worth it. But what I would say is that I think that education has to be purposeful, and that we have to do a better job as a community making sure that kids understand the purpose, their purpose, and how they can use college to their benefit.
Awesome. Yancey?
Yeah, I just 60 seconds. I just want to give a shout out to, I have 15 interns, and 12 of them are college students. The other 3 are high school students, and they're very motivated. And I want to make sure that, I present a positive message for them, and they really feel like high school students, they're motivated to go to college. I want to make sure that myself and my peers are able to give them the tools to be successful in college, and to, once they graduate, be successful as well. So I just want to leave with that. And that economic empowerment is very serious, because I do have 4 of the 12 college students working on economic empowerment as a platform for the next couple months. So we're like, that's specifically what they're going to be working on. And I appreciate everything you guys are doing, and I'm always available to for any topic, anything you guys want to talk about, I'm available. So I appreciate everything. Thank you.
Awesome. Appreciate that, brother. And we will reach out again. Derek, final thoughts?
Well, first, I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you again to the esteemed panel and colleagues that we have here on the show today. Thank you, Bridget, for always coming and laying it down correctly. Thank you, Tiffany, and thank you, Yancey. This is both of you all's first time on the show, and we greatly appreciate the value add that you provided. I think this conversation has been absolutely wonderful. I think it's needed again for our community. Is college worth it in 2020? Yes. However, there are some caveats to follow up or piggyback off of Bridget. I think you need to prepare yourself to get to college. I think you need to understand yourself and what goals you want to reach, and understand what type of degree you want to get. But think about outside of the classroom. You got, this is why you go to college, how to successfully graduate in real life studies outside the classroom and beyond. This is important. This is why this is important, because this is what we've talked about. It's not just in the classroom to your specific field of study. No, there's much more beyond that. And there are things that you can be doing in parallel while you're in college, no matter if you're coming from the bottom or you're already at the top. So yes, it's worth it. But I think that's another topic of how the NCAA and college in general can make some major changes to flip the program.
Awesome. So is college worth it in 2020? For me, just like I came into it with the it depends attitude, and I still have the same thing. It depends, because we've had this great conversation. I think the planning piece is extremely important, and necessary. So, like you, Derek, I appreciate Yancey's efforts. I think it says a lot about you and your character, brother. So, thank you for that. I also, understand Bridget's points. I also understand Tiffany's points about, how ownership is important, but structure is just as, if not more important, right? So that we can, ensure longevity, right? So, I definitely understand all of those things. So I'm still kind of like, yeah, it depends. You know what I mean? You just got to have the right, you got to have the right approach. And similar to Bridget, actually, just like Bridget, you're speaking to my soul. Yancey speaking to my soul. Everybody, economic empowerment is the number one key, I believe, to everything that we speak about and all the change that we want to see in society. Which, when you think about the center of the economy, right, especially in America and therefore the world, it's the banking industry. Which is why I have a plan to disrupt the banking industry, right? I'm not afraid to disrupt the banking industry. That is what I'm personally working on. So I feel like, there are a lot of different approaches to fixing some of the issues in society, which will lead to college being more important than it is. I hope and pray that some point in the very near future, we can have this exact same conversation. And I can say, you know what? Yes, college is absolutely worth it, because there's a general studies degree that will prepare you for any and everything that the world can throw at you. There's also, maybe there's a need for specialized degrees, right? If you are like Tiffany, you know exactly what you want to do, and you have a plan, and you've got that preparation because you've read This Is Why or saw the documentary. You know what I mean? And regardless of whether or not natural selection is, has shined brightly upon you and your situation, you got the fortitude because you got some parents and other individuals in your life that are saying you can do anything you put your mind to. Just go and do it, experience new things, So I want to be wrong. I want to have this conversation again. I want to come back and say, yeah, absolutely, college is worth it. I want to thank each and every one of you guys. You guys have been amazing. I echo Derek's sentiments. We will see you all again, because this has been a great conversation. And I think a lot of people watching are going to benefit, whether they are, teenagers, current college students, or parents trying to prepare their children for the next level. So again, thank you guys. It's been a wonderful conversation. This will not be the last time we speak to you all, especially you, Bridget. So have a wonderful night, guys, and thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
This has been another episode of By Any Means, and we're out.